Have you ever looked back at a friendship or a connection and thought, was there something more? Maybe a lingering glance, a random act of kindness, or a sudden awkward silence that made you wonder if they felt something deeper, but never said a word. In American culture, where directness is often valued, we sometimes forget how many people still struggle to express vulnerability. Love, especially unspoken love, can be quietly present in someone's life, shown not through grand gestures but in subtle, meaningful ways. It's in the way someone remembers your favorite snack, notices when your mood shifts, or chooses to sit beside you in a crowded room without saying much. These aren't just random behaviors. Psychologists have long observed that our emotions often leak through our actions, even when our words stay silent. We live in a society that pushes for clarity and confessions, but some feelings grow slowly, quietly, and stay hidden out of fear, timing, or uncertainty. Understanding the small emotional cues, especially from someone who cares but doesn't know how to say it, can shift the way we view love and connection. So how can you tell when someone loves you in silence? How do you recognize affection when it's wrapped in everyday moments? Let's look closely, because love doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Here are 8 quiet signs that someone may be feeling more than they let on. Signs rooted in real human behavior, backed by emotion, and expressed in ways we often overlook. 1. They unconsciously mirror you. Have you ever noticed someone starting to say things the way you do, or picking up your phrases without even realizing it? Maybe they start using your favorite slang, mimic your gestures, or laugh in sync with you. At first, it might seem like a coincidence, but what if it's something more? When someone feels a deep emotional connection, especially one they haven't fully acknowledged, they often begin to mirror the person they're drawn to. In psychology, this is called mirroring, and it's a subtle, instinctive behavior. It happens without conscious effort. Their brain is, in a way, syncing up with yours. This doesn't mean they're copying you on purpose. It means they feel safe with you, emotionally in tune, and their mind is naturally aligning itself to yours. Picture this: you're telling a story at work, and someone across the table starts using your hand gestures as they talk later in the meeting. Or maybe a friend starts picking up your coffee order without asking, or changes the way they dress after spending time with you. These aren't huge changes, but they're personal, and they reflect something more than just surface-level interest. This kind of mirroring often goes unnoticed by the person doing it. That's what makes it feel so sincere. It's not about imitation, it's about connection. It's a way of saying, I feel close to you, without having to say anything at all. Their actions are like emotional echoes of your presence. In American culture, where independence and individuality are highly valued, we might overlook this kind of subtle bonding, but it's real, and it often happens when someone is trying to stay emotionally close while still keeping their feelings under wraps. Mirroring allows them to feel close without crossing the vulnerable line of confession. So the next time you see someone slowly becoming a quieter version of you, ask yourself, could this be their way of feeling connected? Because sometimes love shows up not in big, bold declarations, but in the quiet way someone begins to reflect who you are. But while some people draw closer through quiet imitation, others react to love by pulling away, especially when emotions feel overwhelming. 2. They pull away at the wrong moments. Why would someone who cares deeply about you seem to disappear just when you need them most? This kind of behavior can be confusing. One moment they're warm, open, maybe even a little too attentive, and the next, they're distant, avoiding eye contact, or suddenly busy when you bring up something personal. If you've ever experienced this, you might have felt hurt or rejected, but there's often more going on beneath the surface. People who secretly love someone but haven't found the courage or clarity to express it often retreat at the exact moments they feel most emotionally exposed. This isn't because they don't care. It's often because they care too much, and they don't know what to do with those feelings. They might back off when you talk about relationships, when you're around others who show interest in you, or when you open up emotionally. It's not indifference, it's fear. In American culture, we often value emotional directness. Say what you mean what you say. But the reality is, a lot of people were never taught how to handle vulnerable emotions, especially love. Pulling away becomes a way to self-protect. It's a shield against rejection, or against revealing feelings that could change the dynamic between you forever. Think of a friend who always makes excuses when things get too personal, or someone who seems deeply interested, but suddenly goes quiet when others are around. Maybe they even act like they're indifferentious to mask how much they actually care. Their timing feels off, but their behavior is often a reflection of internal conflict, not lack of affection. They might not even understand what they're feeling. Hidden love is messy. It's filled with hesitations, overthinking, second-guessing. But ironically, it's often in these awkward, mistimed moments that the truth slips through. Because the more someone tries to hide how they feel, the more visible it becomes in the ways they pull back when they want to lean in. So if you notice someone distancing themselves at moments that call for closeness, ask yourself, is this space really disinterest? Or is it a quiet kind of love, trying not to fall apart? Sometimes, the most revealing sign of affection is the silence someone hides behind. And yet, in the middle of all that distance, affection can still show up in the form of light teasing and playful moments that say more than they seem. 3. They tease you or playfully mess with you. Why does someone who seems to like you act like a kid on the playground, teasing you, joking around, or finding little ways to annoy you just enough to get a reaction? It might feel confusing at first, especially if you're someone who values straightforward communication. But in many cases, this kind of behavior is actually a subtle, emotional strategy. When someone has feelings they're not quite ready to express, whether it's because of timing, fear, or emotional uncertainty, they sometimes resort to humor or playful teasing as a safer outlet for connection. Imagine this: they flick your pen off the table during a meeting, send you a meme that gently pokes fun at your coffee addiction, or call you by a silly nickname only they use. On the surface, it might seem immature or random, but underneath, it's often a way of staying emotionally close without crossing into vulnerable territory. It keeps the interaction light but intimate. This kind of teasing often has a personal edge it's specific to you. That's an important clue. It's not the same kind of joke they'd make with just anyone. Instead, it's tailored in a way that shows they've been paying attention to your habits, your quirks, your reactions. There's emotional awareness behind the playfulness. In American culture, especially in friendships or budding relationships, humor is a common bonding tool. It creates shared moments, private jokes, and emotional closeness without needing to say, "I like you" out loud. But for someone hiding their deeper feelings, these moments of teasing can be more than just funny. They are controlled expressions of affection. Sometimes, this playful behavior can come across as inconsistent. One moment they're teasing you like a middle schooler, and the next they're more distant, maybe even shy. That's often a sign they're navigating complex emotions underneath the surface. They might be unsure whether their feelings are reciprocated, or whether revealing them would change your relationship. So, the next time someone jokingly messes with you in a way that feels personal, not mean-spirited, but specific and consistent, ask yourself, is this just fun, or is there something more behind it? Because sometimes, love starts not with a confession but with a quiet laugh, a teasing grin, and the comfort of being seen without having to be serious. Behind those playful gestures, there's often a deeper truth, and it shows when someone holds on to the little things you barely remember saying. 4. They remember things you've forgotten. Have you ever had someone bring up something small you mentioned months ago, something even you barely remembered saying? When someone secretly loves you, they tend to hold on to the little things you share, not because they're trying to impress you or keep a record, but because those moments genuinely matter to them. Your words stick with them, even when they seem casual or offhand to you. Maybe it was a song you said reminded you of childhood. Weeks later, they send it to you out of nowhere, saying, "This came on and I thought of you." Or you briefly mentioned a stressful family dinner, and the next time you talk, they ask how it went even though you never brought it up again. These kinds of moments aren't about good memory, they're about emotional investment. In American culture, we often move quickly. We're busy, distracted, constantly juggling conversations and notifications. So when someone remembers the small stuff, non-obvious, personal bits, it's not random. It means they were really listening, and it meant something to them. They care enough to pay attention even when no one expects them to. This kind of deep recall is one of the most underrated signs of hidden affection. It shows that they're not just hearing you, they're internalizing what you say. They're filing away your stories, preferences, and worries like puzzle pieces of who you are. They might not act on everything. They might not say much about it, but they remember because you matter. Often, this comes from a place of emotional closeness that they haven't fully voiced. Maybe they don't even know how deeply they feel yet. But when someone values your thoughts enough to hold onto the quiet details, it says more than any direct confession could. So ask yourself who remembers the little things about you, even when you've forgotten. Sometimes, love isn't loud. It's quietly tucked inside a memory that someone chose to keep. And sometimes, that quiet attention isn't just about memory, it's about how they observe you when they think no one else is watching. 5. They watch you when they think you're not looking. Have you ever caught someone looking at you not in a direct, obvious way, but in a quiet moment when you weren't doing anything special? This kind of gaze isn't about attention seeking. It's not the flirty stare across the room or the kind of look that demands a reaction. It's subtle, almost hidden. A glance when you're talking to someone else. A soft stare when you're focused on your phone or just sitting in silence. And when you look up, they quickly shift their eyes away like they were caught feeling something they weren't ready to admit. People who secretly care about you often find themselves drawn to simply watching you. Not in a creepy or uncomfortable way, but with quiet interest and emotion. It's a way for them to feel close without needing to say or do anything. Watching becomes a form of emotional processing, trying to understand what they feel and how to handle it without crossing any lines. In American culture, we're used to clear signs of interest. Someone asks you out, compliments you, makes a move. But hidden love doesn't always follow those rules. Sometimes, it looks like someone quietly studying the way you smile, noticing how your eyes light up when you talk about something you love, or just watching how you move through your day. That kind of observation is intimate. It says, I see you, even if they're not ready to say it out loud. You might notice that this person often knows what you're feeling without you saying much. Maybe they sense when you're not okay, or they respond to your mood before anyone else does. That insight doesn't come from casual interaction, it comes from careful, genuine attention over time. This kind of watching is full of emotion. Sometimes it's admiration, sometimes worry, sometimes longing, but always it's quiet. It happens in the in-between moments, in the pauses, in the spaces where most people aren't paying attention but they are. So the next time you catch someone looking your way, when you're not doing anything particularly exciting, ask yourself, what do they see when they look at you? Because sometimes the eyes say what the heart isn't ready to speak. But watching from afar is only part of it. Real care also shows up in how deeply someone listens, especially when you don't say much at all. 6. They listen more closely than they need to. Have you ever been talking to someone and felt like they were listening to more than just your words? When someone secretly loves you, one of the clearest signs isn't in what they say, it's in how they listen. This isn't just about nodding along or waiting for their turn to speak. It's about real attention. They tune into the tone of your voice, the pauses, the sighs between your sentences. They pick up on what you're not saying just as much as what you are. For example, you might casually mention you're tired, and they ask later if you've been sleeping okay. Or you say something with a smile, but they gently ask if you're really all right underneath it. They're not being nosy, they're just attuned to your emotional shifts. That's because they care in a deeper way, and it comes through in how they focus on you. In a culture like America's, where conversations often move quickly and attention is split across screens, schedules, and stress, truly being present with someone is rare. So when someone consistently listens to you not just out of politeness, but because they genuinely want to understand you, it means something. It shows emotional investment, even if they've never said the words out loud. You'll notice they remember things you said weeks ago. They follow up on them, sometimes even when you've forgotten. Maybe you once mentioned your anxiety around public speaking, and before a big presentation, they text you something encouraging without you ever reminding them. That kind of attentiveness isn't casual. It's rooted in care. People who love quietly often express their affection through awareness. They don't need grand gestures. They show love by being emotionally available in the small moments. That's why they can sense when something's off, even when you say you're fine. They're the ones who can hear the difference between your real laugh and the one you use when you're trying to be okay. So if there's someone in your life who always seems to just get what you're feeling, even when you don't explain, ask yourself, is this just good listening? Or is it love in its quietest form? Because sometimes the deepest kind of love isn't loud. It's simply being there, hearing you fully, and holding space for who you are without ever needing to be asked. And when someone is listening that closely, it often affects how they behave around you compared to how they are with everyone else. 7. They act differently around you than with others. Have you ever wondered why someone seems to change when they're around you? One of the more telling signs that someone may secretly love you is how their behavior shifts specifically in your presence. It's not about them being fake or inconsistent, it's often about emotional vulnerability. When feelings are involved, even the most confident people can become hesitant, quiet, or suddenly a little too careful. You might notice that someone who's usually outgoing becomes more reserved or awkward when they talk to you. Maybe they fidget more, laugh nervously, or stumble over their words. They might normally be the center of attention, but when they're near you, they seem to shrink back, not because they don't want to engage, because they care how they come across. Or it might go the other way. Someone who's typically quiet becomes more animated around you. They joke more, make an effort to connect, or suddenly open up in ways they don't with anyone else. That shift in behavior isn't random, it's emotional. It reflects a different level of investment, even if it's subtle. In American culture, we often expect people to just say how they feel. But feelings are rarely that simple. When someone is carrying quiet affection, they often don't know how or whether it's safe to share it. So instead, it leaks out in how they treat you differently. You become the exception to their normal patterns. Think of the friend who always looks for your reaction when they say something funny, or the co-worker who's extra helpful when it's your project on the table. Maybe they're not this way with others, but with you, there's a shift, a softness, a care that they try to hide, but it slips out anyway. These little differences can be confusing. You might think, why are they warm one minute and distant the next? But those inconsistencies often come from internal conflicting to balance the urge to connect with the fear of revealing too much. And the more they try to control their emotions, the more visible those emotions become. So if someone in your life seems just a little different when they're around you, whether more nervous, more thoughtful, or more present, ask yourself, could this shift be something more than just mood or coincidence? Because love doesn't always come with a grand entrance. Sometimes, it simply shows up in the way someone becomes a quieter, softer version of themselves just for you. That shift in behavior often leads to something even more meaningful: small, everyday gestures that quietly take care of you without asking for credit. 8. They care about you in subtle, everyday ways. Have you ever noticed someone quietly looking out for you without making a big deal out of it? When someone has feelings for you but isn't ready to say it, one of the clearest signs often shows up in how they care for you in simple, consistent ways. Not with grand romantic gestures or public declarations, but in the everyday. It's in the "did you eat yet?" text, the way they remind you to bring a jacket when it's cold, or how they notice you're tired before you've even said a word. These aren't favors they do for everyone. They're small, specific acts of care directed toward you. And in a culture like ours, where people often value independence and personal space, these quiet moments of looking after someone can say a lot, sometimes more than words ever could. For example, maybe you've had a long day and they offer to pick something up for you on their way home. Not because you asked, but because they just knew it would help. Or maybe you vent about something once, and days later they follow up to see how it turned out. They're paying attention, not out of obligation, but because your well-being matters to them on a personal level. This kind of attention isn't about needing praise or recognition. In fact, they often don't even point out what they've done. Their care is quiet and consistent. It's not about impressing you, it's about supporting you in a way that feels natural, even necessary, to them. People who love in silence often express it through service, through thoughtfulness, through noticing the things no one else does and responding without being asked. It might not look like traditional romance, but it's often more real than anything scripted or flashy. And sometimes, that's how you know it's genuine. When someone makes your comfort and peace of mind part of their routine without expecting anything in return, it comes from a deeper place. A place of feeling. A place of love, even if they haven't said it yet. So the next time someone quietly shows up for you, checks in on the little things, or helps without hesitation, ask yourself, is this just kindness or is it something more? Quietly unfolding in the background? Because real affection doesn't always arrive with flowers or fireworks. Sometimes it lives in the ordinary moment, steady, thoughtful, and just for you. All of these signs might seem small on their own, but together, they form a quiet kind of love that often speaks the loudest when it isn't trying to be heard. What quiet love can teach us. Love isn't always loud. It doesn't always show up with flowers, grand speeches, or dramatic gestures. Sometimes it's quiet. It slips into everyday life, tucked into the way someone mirrors how you speak, remembers a small detail from weeks ago, or sits beside you when they sense you're not okay without asking a thing. In a world where we're encouraged to be bold and expressive, it's easy to miss the kind of love that whispers instead of shouts. But that doesn't make it any less real. In fact, that quiet love, kind rooted in care, attention, and subtle presence, is often the most genuine. It isn't performed, and it doesn't seek recognition. It just is. So maybe the person who pulls away when the conversation gets emotional isn't being distant. Maybe they're just scared of being seen too clearly. Maybe the one who teases you more than anyone else isn't trying to annoy you, they're just finding the safest way to stay close. And maybe the person who always shows up for you, who notices when your energy shifts, or who quietly checks in on your bad days, feels more than they're letting on. Love, when it's real, doesn't always ask for attention. Sometimes it's just hoping to be understood. So take a moment. Think about who's been there, not in the obvious ways but in the quiet ones. Could it be that someone is loving you in silence, simply waiting for you to notice? Because sometimes, the love that matters most is the one that never needed to be loud. It just needed to be felt.